Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Factor viewers and the Republican race. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. So, I spent hours this weekend reading your emails about last Thursday's debate. Hundreds of them. Could have been thousands of them. And my interviews with the candidates afterward in Detroit. Opinions all over the place, which makes things very interesting. Talking Points values perspective from you. So this is a good time to analyze that. We begin with Dennis Dreyer, who lives in Calgary, Canada. The three debate moderators claim to want to hear about policy, but then instigate a hatchet job. Do you agree? I do not agree. All four candidates were asked legitimate questions about policy and their political history. Inconsistencies on the part of the candidates about their policy records are, of course, fair game. How the candidates answer the questions is not up to the moderators. It's certainly instructive to see how these people who are seeking power handle themselves under pressure. So sometimes what looks to be out of control is actually giving you some insight. I saw no sign of any hatchet at the debate. Max Sujic, Simi Valley, California. I am 9 years old, and if I talk the way those men at the debate did, my mom would ground me. Politics is a rough business, Max, but I agree, maybe they should be grounded. Some of it's acting, though. Remember Christie criticizing Donald Trump earlier in the campaign and vice versa? Now they're pals. I'm glad you're paying attention to your country. Angie Sims, Chicago, we were disappointed because you promised you would tell us who won the debate. We stayed up late, but you never gave your opinion. At the beginning of the Kasich interview, I stated to the governor that he had the best policy arguments, so that was my pick. His problem-solving rhetoric was superior, in my opinion. Mike Porter, Flat Rock, Michigan. I see a concerted effort by Fox News to eliminate the Republican front-runner. The post-debate interviews by O'Reilly appear to be a setup, standing up next to Trump so O'Reilly could appear taller than he is, and sitting down with the rest of the candidates. Simply a matter of logistics. We opened the Factor on stage because our set was up in the balcony. Would have taken Trump too much time to get up there. During the first commercial break, the other guys had time to make the trek as I did. But let's address the more important question here. Political paranoia. Makes no difference whether an interview is conducted standing or sitting. What is said is what's important. Your view of a contrived anti-Trump setup because I am taller than he is speaks to a fantasy that FNC seeks to manipulate its viewers. It doesn't. Alan Neubauer, Kittredge, Colorado. Bill, your post-debate interview with Trump was excellent, serious journalism. You should go back to being a reporter and forget about commentary. Never left being a reporter. All good analysis should be fact-based, and that's what we do here. My interviews are based on what has actually happened, cause and effect. That's what I bring, and it's based on my decades of reporting experience. Randy Furness, Coopville, Washington. Everybody knows why Kasich hasn't had the attention of Fox News and other media. You and others want a circus to entertain the masses. It's all about ratings. Don't need a circus to get ratings. Was the murder of Kate Steinle a circus? How about the rise of ISIS? TV news does give airtime to the sensational, but not exclusively. Governor Kasich has chosen to run a retail campaign where he meets with as many folks as possible, outlining his experience and accomplishments. We have reported and analyzed that. We can't do it over and over and over. Now, a guy like Trump says something new and provocative nearly every day, so obviously he's going to get more coverage. We are in the news business. Accent on the word new. Ken Carroll, Prospect, Connecticut. I don't care what they say about Trump. He has never lied to me. The Republican establishment has. And that is the cornerstone of Trump's support, that his point of view echoes that of Americans fed up with phony politicians who fold on major issues. Also that he rejects political correctness, which has battered the nation and suppressed opposing points of view. There's a powerful anger directed at the politics-as-usual crowd, and Mr. Trump has harnessed that anger into votes. It has been a brilliant strategy. Ed Zalarsky, Newport Richey, Florida. Bill, I saw you baiting Trump after the debate. It was negative. Michelle Parkanen, Wisconsin. O'Reilly, it pains me to say it, but your fawning interview with Trump after the debate was cringe-worthy. Now, I get opposite assessments every time I interview any politician. I baited Trump. I fawned over Trump. Can't be both. But here's the danger. Increasingly in America, folks are hearing what they want to hear. not what's actually being said. We live in a time where you can create your own world by using high-tech gizmos. Outside of making a living, society no longer demands rationality on your part. You have to perform in the workplace and at school, or else you'll live in poverty. But in your private life, you can create any scenario you want and lose complete touch with what is actually taking place. That new wave of behavior is sweeping over the political process, and canny power seekers are harnessing emotion to achieve success. A kind of presentation has become the rule rather than the exception. Power can be a very dangerous thing, and Americans should think long and hard before bestowing it on anyone. It is my job to keep it all real and fair. I believe I am doing my job. And that's a memo. Now for the top story tonight, reaction joining us from Washington, Charles Krauthammer. So the folks, how do you think they're processing the Republican brawl?
Well, I think people do tend to narrowcast and decide what they want to hear. That is true. But one of the virtues of a national debate on national television is that at least for 2 hours, we're all hearing the same thing. Now, we can filter it differently, but we're all hearing the same thing. And I think we may be at some kind of turning point here. Number one, that was the least elegant, well, that's a soft way to put it. That was the lowest point of political discourse that we have experienced for several decades. But the other part, that's sort of obvious to everyone, the throwing of the insults and the references and all that. But the other point is, I think we're at a point in this campaign, 6 months, 7 months in, where ordnance is being dropped on Trump in a way that hasn't. For about 5 months, he got a free ride, not because anybody was acting venally, but because candidates saw it in their interest not to attack the front runner, to attack each other as a way to get into the so-called establishment lane and end up one-on-one. Well, it was obvious that if they had continued that way, Trump was going to win. So the last 2 debates have been all-out assaults on Trump. And that's where the kind of negative information, the kind of opposition research that you would normally get in a campaign in the early months finally came out. And the question is, and this has to do, for example, with Trump University, has to do with importing of illegal workers on the Trump Tower, the importing of foreign workers at Trump's golf resort, and even the flip-flops. We saw how he changed his position on H-1B, highly skilled immigrants. The visas, he flipped on stage, and then afterwards his campaign issued another statement. So all of these questions about Trump are emerging. And the only question that I think is the paramount one right now is it going to make a difference? And there's some evidence that perhaps it does, not on those who decided for Trump weeks ago. If you look at the Louisiana primary results, those who voted early overwhelmingly were pro-Trump. But the interesting result was the late deciders, the ones who voted late, decided late, split evenly between Trump and Cruz. And that's the question. Does this new information, the assault from Rubio and Cruz, and to some extent the media on Trump, the bringing up of opposition research, that's a new element in this campaign, and what effect is it going to have? That is unknown.
What is the responsibility of the press to be fair to Trump? Because obviously they're coming after him. I said that if Trump gets a nomination, it'll be the bloodiest fight between a candidate and the media, forget about the Democrat, that has ever been in the history of this thing. So my responsibility is to defend Trump to what point, or your responsibility, or anybody's. Some of the charges leveled against him are grossly unfair, are they not?
Well, you make your judgment which charges are fair, which aren't, and you can decide to air that, to talk about it if you want, perfectly legitimate. You do that not just for Trump, you do it for any candidate.
Yeah, for all of them.
But I do think that even though the media are, in a sense, independent, they do have their own prejudice and their will. There's no question about that. And it is generally overwhelmingly liberal and
but it's more than liberal now. It's personal. We hate Trump. He's a racist.
But
he's this, he's that. It's, you know it is.
Well, yeah, but wait a minute. Trump has gotten very, very, favorable and massive exposure over the last 6 months. The point I'm trying to make is that the media take their cue from the other candidates. If the other candidates are not attacking, Ted Cruz,
the other candidates aren't calling Trump a racist.
Let me give you an example.
The other ones aren't calling Trump a racist. The media is calling Trump a racist. The media has all the media thought that Trump was going to disintegrate and they're not going to have to bother with this vulgarian. But now that's not true. So now the media is portraying a narrative that he's a racist Nazi. That's what they're doing, Charles. The other candidates aren't doing that. Last word on it.
Well, there may be extreme examples in the media calling him a Nazi. I haven't really seen that.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not the, well, I mean, you can always get extreme attacks on him.
New York Times on Saturday called the guy a racist and I mean, come on.
Look, a guy begins his campaign by talking about Mexican rapists who says he wants to bar Muslims. I think he opens himself to charges of prejudice. Whether you agree or not, that's certainly a legitimate topic you would raise.
They've carried
the point I'm trying to make is if you get a Cruz, spend 6 months drafting behind Trump, refuses to say a word against him, and now as of January he turns, that's where the media get their direction.
No, I don't think so.
And that's why you're seeing this onslaught.